Board of Commissioners weekly finance meeting. Normally we spend these meetings talking about the county's fiscal position in our efforts to alleviate variance between costs and revenues. Today we have first matter of business, our good friend Ben Honorman from Redevelopment Authority, and then I think a very interesting presentation on the transportation needs of our disabled citizens, which will follow. And I think it'll be a very interesting session. But let's start off with the business. Ben, please.
Well, the urgency of this matter is imposed on us by the Department of Community and Economic Development, who chose to take 2 weeks to respond to us about how we can handle a budgetary matter. So they have a deadline where contract C0000555759, which is where you're administering agent for emergency solutions grant funding, where that closes permanently on October 25th. So the issue is they want us to draw the money, we want to draw the money, we have permission preliminarily. With your approval, they will process this. $22,669.10 moved from rapid rehousing to emergency shelter. Both line items were in this grant. We're just shifting the money so that we're able to draw it for that purpose. And again, I regret the short notice that it couldn't wait until the 22nd.
Okay. There are no additional funds involved?
We may be coming back to you in the future to talk about the use of community development block grant funding that has been allocated for shelter services for the purposes of homelessness prevention.
Okay.
However, they're wholly separate matters. We need to advertise that change to CDBG funds. That is not a requirement of ESG at this point in time.
And these are these are 2014-15 budget dollars.
The ESG funding, the reason it's urgent is because it's 2013 funding. So it's closing out.
Reach back for that 1 year.
Right, and then CDBG will most likely be 2014 funds. But we're not even addressing that at this meeting.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve the revisions, if we could.
Is there a second? Second. Is there any further discussion on this?
Just to kind of add to it a little bit, Larry and I met with Kate Molinaro and Ben here, I think it was yesterday, relative to this. And, essentially what it comes down to is that there was a paperwork snafu, don't know whether it was from the DCED. Actually, I think we had done whatever, and they said they didn't receive it, and so it's one of those situations. But I think that we need to move forward so that we could.
We've had with Keith. Keith is okay with this, and just to reiterate, we have had a number of issues with DCD correspondence. We can't FedEx things. We can't send them certified mail. We have to send them regular mail. We got to the wrong person. That person can walk across the hall to the other person. And
Is this happening statewide? I mean, we cannot be the only ones facing this sort of, bring this at the 11th hour to make this happen.
Well,
so is a conversation going to those who perhaps answer to someone else?
We met with the person who reports that we work with. We met with their boss to discuss some of the issues that we're seeing. This is one of those issues. Statewide, other jurisdictions are looking at not even using ESG funding because of how difficult it is, fronting the money for many months.
So, and you may, as you mentioned before, present a similar scenario on the 22nd at our next workshop.
That's right. So
okay.
We're working on drafting a memo, and it may be actually in a future workshop because
That's
we have
fine.
to advertise it.
Okay. There's a motion in a second. Is there any further discussion or comment? All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you.
And I think it will.
Thank you. Well, quickly before I turn this over to Mike Ponsell, I think people who have attended both these meetings and our workshop meetings know that the county has been engaged in the process with the Capital Area Transit Authority for an extended period of time regarding both the level of service and the value that the county receives for the contributions that it makes to the operations of the transit authority. We have here today a think an instance just to help frame this a little bit. Our county used to provide its own shared ride services for people eligible for those services, usually through Human Services. That function has been transferred from the county to the York Area Transit Authority and has been in place since July 1st. As we continue to assess our relationship with CAT within the context of an overall movement amongst 9 counties in South Central and Central Pennsylvania towards some sort of potential regional or consolidated solution. We continue to look at the service levels and the value issues with our current relationship with CAT. We have here today Mike Clapsaddle and Rick Vino, who both serve as county's representatives to the CAT board. We also have some special guests that, Mike, I hope you will introduce them or let them introduce themselves.
I will. I have some things to say preface-wise, if I can. I got the floor.
You got it. It's yours.
It's the county commissioners who decided to provide the transit services are, of course, the Cumberland County. As such, it's apropos for you to hear directly from the folks with disabilities to ride transit, as these folks are commonly wholly dependent on public transit in Cumberland County. It serves as a lifeline for them. As a CAT board member, I've been hearing of fixed route rider defections at CAT due to service quality problems the past several months. As a matter deserving of deliberations at a later time. Although fixed route riders have transportation alternatives when buses are repeatedly late. Though Pastor Minich has some valuable, from the Salvation Army, has some valuable insight and experience to offer in terms of fixed route services provided by CAT and the county's needs in that regard. Unfortunately, the disabled community using ADA and paratransit services does not have the luxury of transit alternatives. Public transit is the only option for many disabled folks. A fact that the Cumberland County, who selects the county's transit provider and pays substantial sums for the service, is in a position to help ensure that these folks are not taken advantage of. Let me start before I turn it over to Pam and our other guests. To give you a profile of the folks using paratransit and ADA services. The average ADA paratransit service user has an income of less than $19,000. 1/3 have incomes of between $10,000 and $19,000. Another third have incomes of less than $10,000. And 3 of 4 disabled riders using ADA and paratransit services are female. CAT continues to provide ADA transit services to the disabled in Cumberland County. Despite Cumberland County recently arranging with Rapid Transit, of course, to provide paratransit services to Cumberland County residents. During CAT's most recent full fiscal year, CAT provided approximately 33,000 ADA trips associated with our fixed route service, many of which were in Cumberland County to Cumberland County residents. CAT provides both ADA and paratransit services within Dauphin County and the city of Oceanside. As we listen to the stories today, I wish to share a realization that at some point in most of our lives, we ourselves, friends or family members, will be disabled either temporarily or permanently and may need to depend on the services that we're hearing of today. The phrase, "there but by the grace of God," comes to mind. Before we turn the floor over to our guest speakers, I'd like to also recognize the initiative and good work that Jonathan Bowser and Laura Potoff of the county's Cumberland Area Economic Development Corporation are going to help solve the access to work problem, in part some of the issues that we hear from Reverend Minich on, by exploring both public transit and other solutions. Their work and contributions are most valuable. Appreciate it. I'd like now to turn the floor over to Pam Howard, who can introduce your guests that you brought with you, and I appreciate that. And you can tell your stories. Thank you.
Actually, Seth is lead for the Wheels in Motion Advocacy Group, and I'm going to let him do the history, and then we'll work our way through if that's all right. Introduce yourself.
My name is Seth Ambrose. I'm the lead staff for the Wheels in Motion Group, and we've been, I was just told today that I wasn't aware of how long we've been in existence, but our group has been fighting for advocacy needs for 2 years now. And it's been a long struggle with trying to make the transportation service work better for our community. So we've been at this for a while, and it's hard to really see much of a conclusion, like a way to feel like it's getting better. Like we seem to be we've gotten to this point we're first trying to work with Cavalier Transit and trying to make the services work better for people, but we've gotten to this point by trying to work together with CAT and trying to make the shared ride service work better for us. But we've gotten this far, and we want to see that the services keep continuing to improve. We've been working for so long, we want to see that things keep on moving forward.
I give a little more detail. In the process of the establishment of Wheels in Motion Advocacy Group, who is supported by the Center for Independent Living of Central Pennsylvania. I am Pam Auer, the director of Living Well with a Disability. I'm part of this crew. There's a lot more advocates that come to the table on a monthly basis to talk about the issues. The primary issue when we established this group, transportation. I can't get somewhere, or I'm getting there late. All kinds of issues. We'll give you a lot of examples if you want them. But this is a primary concern for people with disabilities because it's how you get anywhere in the community. Hate to say how long I've been around in the community, but back in when I started in 1993 in a small town in Pennsylvania, there was a group that just established called Pennsylvania Transportation Alliance. Do you remember that? There was a Freedom Ride, Freedom Ride 95, which started the pilot for the shared ride that we have now. It started in a few counties, and I know that Dolphin was one of the first pilots. I don't know if Cumberland was right there with them, but we value it so much that people with disabilities have fought to keep the shared ride, and we got it expanded to now it's 66 of 67 counties. Philadelphia will not be able to get the Persons with Disabilities Shared Ride program because they are not rural. They won't ever be rural. A reason I give you that background is because I want you to know how important it is and how much we value it. After we got through getting it in our counties, then we said, hey, wait, we're not getting quality rides. We should be valued more as riders, as people with disabilities, but yeah, we're able to get on the bus, but we're getting there late. We are, if we're getting there at all, we're on the bus for over an hour in some places to get to an appointment or get back from an appointment. So that's why the group established and started working on transit issues. And we've been coming up with all of our reasons, all the things that are happening. But then we said, okay, where do we go from here? We know what it should look like, what we want it to look like. How do we get from here? So the group met with CAT. We made a lot of attempts to meet with CAT, and then we went to a board meeting, and they assigned staff to work with us to create some hearings. So we wanted them to hear from the people themselves. And we did those hearings, and then we didn't hear anything to set it and set up the advisory. So we had the went back to the board meeting, and they said that 3 of their staff were out sick. We're like, okay, but that doesn't mean you can't respond to us and tell us that. So it's a value thing. If someone would ask you for the help that you said you were going to give them, you would respond back saying, hey, my staff, we're on hold a little bit here, but we will get back to you. We didn't get that courtesy until we went to that board meeting. So we came away from that board meeting with, okay, the staff's going to be back October 5th. Okay, so a couple days later after that, October 5th deadline, we got an email saying that they'll work with us. But the biggest thing out of the whole thing is we don't only want an advisory, we do want a shared ride advisory, but we want the voice, we want to be able to make real systems change. The rides need to be improved, service needs to be improved, and there's multiple ways it needs to be done. I guess before giving the suggestions on how it can be done, you need to hear some of the examples that people are living through in trying to use shared ride. Jen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi. My name is Jennifer DeCosta, and I take the cab bus to the Cumberland County Aging Office because I work with the Cumberland Lake office. but I cannot get there in my wheelchair because I do not cross the highway. So, my supervisors are very understanding that sometimes I do have a set time that I am supposed to be at work. I'm supposed to start at 10, so I'm supposed to be picked up at my house at 9:30. Sometimes they don't pick me up till 10 minutes to 10, and it takes 20 minutes to get to the agent and community services office. So therefore I'm like 10 minutes late. And but I don't understand. I don't expect them. They are understanding, but I don't expect them to be.
Not every employer would be. And that's one of the issues that some of our people are having.
How often does that happen?
Well, I go to the office once a week, so maybe once a month, because it doesn't matter to me, but I get a different driver every time. It's never the same driver in the same day.
We have other people in Cumberland County who've expressed stories that actually, and I want to preface this with, we value being able to cross county lines. That's a very good benefit that not all counties have with a shared ride. We have people who work in the city, in Harrisburg, and live in Mechanicsburg. And one of the hearings she expressed that it can take her more than an hour, hour and a half on the bus going from downtown Harrisburg to Mechanicsburg, and they will drive right by her house and drop other people off. Even one day she actually demanded to be able to get off the bus, and they wouldn't. They said they couldn't let her off the bus, and she felt like she was just held hostage. And this is a person who has also said not only, having difficulty getting how long it takes to get home, but getting to work on time. And she works for the state. And just because we have a disability doesn't mean that our employers don't hold us to the same standard, and we expect that. So she has difficulty. Another individual who's blind told us the same thing. She actually works for the state as well. And one of the staff said because she was continually late, one of the staff, Kat, had suggested she even go an hour earlier, ride the bus, get on the bus even an hour earlier to be able to be at work on time.
That was the answer from them.
I'm sorry?
That was the answer from them.
That was their answer, and we get that a lot. We actually get that a lot when we call with consumers and with riders. Maybe you should change your route. Somebody who lives in, and this is a Dauphin County example, but someone who lives in Middletown. Lives in Middletown and crosses to come over to the Center for Independent Living, was told the pickup time is 9 to 9:30, and sometimes he doesn't get there until 10:30 when his appointment's at 10. They said, well, get on the bus at 8, and that way, you can be there. But if they do that, they get to our office before the fitness center is even open. So they may be sitting outside, and it's just not practical. And who without a disability would be asked to do that, to extend your time? That's the biggest concern. One of the things that the group has expressed, they don't feel like their time is valued. Just because we have a disability, we can be late. They don't take into consideration we do work, we do volunteer, we do have doctor's appointments. That's another horrendous experience that people are having. Did you want to mention that one?
Yes,
Who are you?
my name is Diana Dealey, and I'm a recent resident of Cumberland County. I moved actually a year ago on Friday from Dauphin County, and I've had friends miss doctor's appointments because their rides were late.
I've had that problem as well.
But some of them have waited a year to get that doctor's appointment, only to miss it and have to wait however long to get that appointment again. The other aspect is, you all know, what does your doctor say when you're 15 minutes late for an appointment? They're not going to take you, and you make it fines, you make it fees. So these are already people who, as Mr. Capsal's expressed, are low income, lowest of the low income, and they're gonna get a double whammy. Some of the other experiences that people are having is that,
They'll get no-shows.
yes, the no-show issue.
No-shows, and then sometimes it's not even up to what they've done, it's just the fact that they mark them as no-shows because of the system that they're using becomes not, it doesn't perform to the expectations of what CAT and our consumers really need it to. And then they'll get 3 no-shows, they can't use the service for a month. So then they can't uphold their appointments or their, whatever they might have in their schedule. And again, their time is valuable.
The new eco-lane system, we've been asking again and again for them to evaluate the eco-lane system, reevaluate it. Because we're experiencing, and God bless them, we have one consumer who is the most, they drop his rides so consistently, it's unbelievable. And the last time they dropped his ride, he called the first time to say, hey, where's my ride? And it's between 3:30 and 3:30, I'm supposed to be picked up. And they said, well, it'll be out to get you. They never gave him a time. And then we called back in half an hour. It'll be in about an hour. The third time we called, we were told that it'll be there in 15 minutes. Go out and wait. We waited. Bus driver came in 15 minutes. I asked the bus driver, when were you given his trip? The guy said, I was in Mechanicsburg. They gave it to me 15 minutes ago. So we're talking an hour and a half of him waiting, and then that 15 minutes. So I called into the CAT office to talk to somebody and let them know that he got on the bus, but what really happened because the driver just got that trip. And it was investigated by one of the staff, and it came back that it was considered an open, I'm sorry, I want to use the actual expression. It was in an open status, which meant that he didn't have a driver assigned to him. They schedule their appointment when they're supposed to. Time to be picked up, time to from their home, time to be picked up from their meeting. And the one to be picked up to go home was dropped. It was called open status. If he didn't have the ability to call and find out what was happening, if he didn't have advocates who work with him regularly to call in, what would have happened to him? Where would he have been? That's our question. You know, open status, what does that mean?
That has also happened to me as well several times.
So we need to make sure that they're working on that eco lane. You know, the state put money into it. They have tech support. And the individual who told me about open status did say that they were going to put in a ticket for some technical support. We asked at the board meeting, work with us. We'll tell you the issues we're seeing that we think are related to eco lane. I don't know where that went with anything, but our goal is to work with shared ride. We need it. We want to improve it. Whatever's going to work best for the consumers. I have to tell you something funny that it's kind of sad, but it is funny. When we had the open forum that we had with CAT in Harrisburg, in the city, one of the things that was mentioned to us was that CAT had a 95% satisfaction rate from the riders. And I'm sorry, the whole room was just like chuckling and saying, what? They could not believe it. Anybody in that room were dumbfounded. We want to know who was surveyed because obviously people with disabilities do not feel that there should be a 95% satisfaction rate. People with disabilities are just not feeling valued. Like our rides, our ability to go places is as important as anyone else. So that's where we're coming from. There's so many other stories out there where somebody was supposed to be called in. He was sitting in our office. And they called in to say where he's at, you know, where's his ride? And they said, no, he's on the bus. CAT told us that the individual sitting in front of us was on the bus. And, you know, we know that's not true. We've had so many times where the people in our office sitting with us were considered a no-show. They just said that they weren't there. They're right here with us, waiting for their ride, and they've been marked as a no-show. So we have to get them get the CAT to come back and send somebody to get them on the bus.
And then correct the no-show.
I'm sorry?
And then make the correction for the no-show, so they're not penalized.
That's what we call a make sure. That's what we call to do,
Is-
make
is
sure.
calling
But people
the-
are getting marked as no-shows that are really not.
Is calling the number one means of communication?
The call center?
Yes, in other words, for clients to call, not emailing or texting or anything like that.
We are calling in, that's one of the recommendations that I wanted to make that would help. Having a consistent person to talk to and make a formal complaint. One of the things that we were told when we call directly into the call center is, and this isn't accessible, but it has to be the person with a disability who's got the ride that should be making the call. We always have that person with us. We don't have a consistent person to talk to. The person needs to know that they need to ask for an investigation. Who thinks to ask? I'm making a formal complaint to you. I want you to tell me what happens. People are not getting the callbacks to say what happened. They're not getting any resolution to any of this. Okay, we'll take it down. Can you let me know? Well, you need to call back in 3 days. You only find that call back in 3 days when you're calling in and asking this. So we're asking for a real complaint system, something real where people can go and have it registered and have it resolved and response back to us. That's what we ask for. You know, as a group, there's so many different things that we think that might benefit shared ride.
Is there a dedicated line?
I'm sorry.
Is there a dedicated line
I
for shared ride? You know that from Cat?
I don't think so. There is.
There's the number to call to schedule your ride, and then that's the same number for the shared ride. Shared ride has its own phone number, it does.
Okay.
And you call in. But what happens is, and I don't mean to interrupt you, Jen, but from our experience, we'll call and get dispatch. And then they'll say, okay, well, we'll try and send somebody out. Okay, we want to make a complaint. Well, then I got to transfer you over to this person, or you might get a voicemail for that person. Or you need to, what was I told? If it's a dispatch issue, this person has to. If it's a ride issue, you got to go to this person. There's not a centralized area. And those are recommendations. We were asking for an advisory body. Shared ride, when it was a pilot, it mandated that providers have an advisory. Well, CAT's advisory went away. I don't know when. But we're asking for that, but we're asking for more than that. We want an advisor, but we want a voice. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We can sit at a table and advise all we want, but if the changes are not being made. So another thing is if we had a seat at the table.
Does anybody else in the Commonwealth do this any better? I grew up in Pittsburgh and I know Access.
Mm-hmm.
And good, bad, whatever. Are you hearing that there are pockets of success somewhere else that could perhaps be brought in as a model to showcase that truly someone else, has stepped up and,
You named it. You named it. Access is, they've got it down. I mean, my sister-in-law still lives in Pittsburgh. My husband lives in Pittsburgh. And 10 minutes out, they'll call and say, you get an automated thing. Hey, we're on the way to, and state your address to get you.
And that was kind of why I was asking
Yep.
about what means to call in and then what the response. I was hoping to hear
Yeah.
that there was going to be that call.
There are some
So-
good places. Now with Ecolane, I don't think Access has Ecolane. I think they might have a better system. I'm not sure. But dealing with Ecolane, one of the groups that we worked with, we shared our frustration on a statewide call. The transportation line still exists. And people from Southwest PA said, hey, we've had the same problem. And what they did was, they had the hearing we're talking about, and they talked about all this stuff. And then they were able to get enough press and things to have PennDOT come down and see what was going on. And they were able to work together to stop the system where it was at, make the corrections, revamp, and move it on. I understand it's a smaller system, but we really need something where they're looking at the system as a whole and make the changes that are necessary. We are asking for systemic changes. We've had to, as a Center for Independent Living, use litigation with CAT before. And our executive director said, we don't want to go to that, but if we have to. So I'm not trying to threaten, but I'm trying to say this is the extent that people with disabilities, where our frustration is at. We have the person I was telling you about that consistently gets a bad ride at least once a week. sometimes twice, 3 times a week. He gets problems with his ride. I have a video of him, and I still have it on my phone if any of you want to see it, of his frustration. Just so angry that it's always happening to him. And he misses doctor's appointments. And his partner's life partner, she makes the appointments for him every single day. He's at the same place every single day unless he's got a doctor's appointment. So there isn't really a reason why he's consistently having these bad trips. He's the one I said about, they said he was on the bus, and he's sitting in front of us, and they're saying he's a no-show. All kinds of stuff that's been happening to this individual. But there's more than that. There's the people who live out in the Middletown as well, ride all over, I'm not kidding, all over Creation to go from Middletown to Camp Hill and back. Their rides easily are an hour and a half sometimes. And a lot of times, if it wasn't so sad, it would be funny. Their pickup was 9 in the morning. They got picked up at 10. They got to the office at 10:30, and when his appointment was at 10, they got to the office at 10:30. He missed his return ride. The return ride for him had already been to our office and left. And that's not what would have been scheduled anyway. So crazy things happen. So I've done a lot of talking. You have any questions? Am I giving enough information?
Just, first of all, I want to thank all of you for coming in and sharing your frustrations with us today. We really appreciate that. I was appointed by the board along with Mike to serve on this critical issues committee where we're looking at how we can better cooperate with all of the transit agencies in the region. And shared ride is, one of the areas that we need to have a focus on, better coordination. And just for my clarification, do all of you folks live within 3/4 of a mile of fixed route?
Yes. I do.
Okay, because, there's this requirement by the federal government based on the funding. The person with disability funding, as I understand it, that those transit agencies that operate fixed route service, which is your regular bus, that they are then required to provide to the disability community shared ride service within 3/4 mile of a fixed route.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's my understanding that, the rest of Cumberland County, folks who have disabilities, they ride our transit shared ride service, which is now YATA, which is soon going to be the Central Pennsylvania Transit Authority. So there's a lot of individuals who have disabilities that are using our shared ride service. Is that correct? Is that your understanding?
Yes. There's county shared ride, and then there's the ADA. The ADA transportation.
And I also understand that in some cases, there may be contracts with, to provide
Yeah,
service for disabilities.
Cumberland County contracted with York County, they call it rabbit transportation.
Yeah, well, that's right.
But, yes, Cumberland does contract with York County to provide the transportation now. Before July 1st, it didn't, it was Cumberland County itself.
Right. Well, did you use the Cumberland County transportation buses at all? The shared ride buses?
Yeah, that's what I use.
Okay. All right. Well, and the problem with this whole thing, and that's why this discussion is important at a regional level, because it's way too complicated, all right? We have funding stream from the state lottery for our senior citizens. Then we got, funding that comes from the Department of Human Services for folks who are low income and they're on Medicaid to get to the doctors. Then we got another funding stream that comes from the Department of Transportation. Then we have this funding that comes from the Persons with Disabilities Act. And essentially, they all have their own little quirks with respect to how, things have to operate. And this is one of the questions that I have in terms of actually improving service for all of you and everybody in our county. is that we got to figure out how better to coordinate, whether that's through regionalization or some other step. But, you know, my understanding is years ago, and for whatever reason it was not considered, but, you know, that CAT could have contracted with Cumberland Transportation Department to provide the shared ride service for those of you who live within 3/4 of a mile of a fixed route. And we could also be contracting, you know, the other way. CAT could contract with YATA now, or the Cumberland Area Transportation Authority to provide service. So that way, regardless of where you live, whether you live in Dauphin County, or you live in York County, or you live in Cumberland County, you know, you're going to get a coordinated service. So we don't have all these different little buses passing each other all the time. So I wanted to clarify that. So all of you who are affected by CAT's service with respect to shared ride, essentially all of you live within 3/4 of a mile of fixed route transit provided by CAT.
Yes.
Yes.
Right, which prevents us here in Cumberland County from providing shared ride service to you using now YATA, as I understand.
Can I just say, we're representing a large group of people. We come from diverse places, you know, and we are representing a group. And I've met with Toby Fowler before with the Transportation Alliance, and I've heard him talk about all the different funding streams and how they need to come together and talk about regionalization. And that's all important stuff. But regionalization is only as good as the providers. And if you have scattered providers right now giving poor quality of service, you're going to throw them together and you're going to have poor quality of service. People need to step up. And I have to say, as a person with a disability, you know, as a taxpayer, I want to make sure that we're always fiscally responsible, but as a rider and someone desperate for these services, the money issues, that kind of thing, that's unfortunately your responsibility. For us, our biggest concern is that it gets improved. You know, we always want to be fiscally responsible, but we just want a better ride where we're you know, be able to go and become taxpayers by getting a job. And that's a lot of us want to. A lot of us, I do work.
And this is key to the discussion. We need to break down, as far as this, you know, whole conversation with regional trends, we need to break down the silos, because at the end of the day, you're the customer, you're the folks we want to serve. Right? Priority number one. And then somebody can do the accounting, you know, later on, all right, as to which funding source it comes from. But we have, you know, some of these, you know, little bureaucratic rules that we have to jump through right now. You know, Econolane was forced on us by the state. And, you know, I think that even our shared ride administrators are still struggling with making Econoline work the way it's supposed to work. But in any event, so I guess I wanted to ask Mike and Rick, because they're both on our CAT board. Has this been addressed at the CAT board, these particular concerns? Has this come up at the CAT board?
It was indicated that you came to the last, I was out of town, so I was not at the last board meeting.
They were in May, they were at the May meeting, I'm sure you were at that meeting. Then they came back again last CAT board meeting in September, 4 months later. Now, what I found intolerable is that you shared it the second, 4 months later, you shared with the whole board that nothing has improved. Those were your words.
No, the rides, and that happens often as well. They may, for a week, the rides may be okay, but then it's never nothing, it's not anything that's ever sustainable. The quality has not improved and stayed at a higher quality. And that's a big concern. And thank you for reminding me, because that's what we wanted to express. We get little pieces of okay, and then it falls apart.
Is there a seat on the CAT board for a member from the community with disabilities?
We would love that.
Yes or no?
Although,
There is not.
no, the answer is no.
Nowhere.
Although the advisory board, I think, is a matter of federal law. And I've been a member a relatively short period of time. I just heard you say that it hasn't always existed at CAT.
No,
So they're required by law, as I understand law, to meet twice per year.
Okay.
Have you experienced that?
There was a CAT advisory I've never known a person with a disability to be on the board, a rider with a disability. We've had an advisory, and I used to attend, okay, so I worked at, so, trying to use my mental, who I worked for at the time, and 2005, like 2000 to 2005, there was an advisory. And it might have lasted maybe a couple years after I left too, but then it hasn't existed as long as I've been back 5 years.
So that would be a takeaway from today, advocating for the Board of County Commissioners from Cumberland, for our representatives on CAT, for a seat.
Now, if we get our advisory and that person, like a person with disability leading that advisory, have a seat, that would be wonderful. A recommendation like that would be wonderful.
You talked about a voice, I'm talking about a vote.
That's what we want. We want
Exactly.
we want the voice at the table. We want that yes. And we agree with you 100%. That's what
Yes.
we would allow. Because we have suggestions already that we want to put forth that we think would improve. You know, you need better people who are answering the phones. You
Yes.
get very disrespectful people and they treat us like garbage.
And on the whole time for the phone too.
Yeah.
What I was hearing about the communication part was the, what would be a follow-up or a follow-back, that if in fact a issue was addressed, both within, 4 working days or whatever, there was no sort of follow-on to complete that issue. And some may not be resolved in 4 days.
Yeah.
But again, either a communication back
Yeah.
that it was going
At
somewhere.
least they're looking at it, they're, and they'll get back to us in so many other ways, but people want to know that something's gonna change. And honestly, and Seth can attest to this, we hear it quite often as Center for Independent Living staff. When you mention shared ride, or you mention using CAT Transit, nope, tried that once, they left me for however long, and I'm not doing it again. Older people are saying this to us, that they're being left at their doctor's appointment for an hour, 2 hours, waiting to be picked up. And we know it's shared ride, that's what they give us every time. Well, this is a shared ride program, and you have to wait, there's other people. We understand that, but there's a reasonableness to that. If you're on the bus for over an hour, because you're being the 6th, 7th person, then that might not be realistic, And the buses that go by with nobody in it, we don't understand that either, because the buses we see, 5, 6 people are jammed in, and you're going all over creation to be able to get home. So we want to work that out where there isn't those buses.
Well, and that's where I think, it all comes down to better coordination, cooperation, and/or regionalization. One of the things the reason we're looking for regionalization is because we're going to save money. But it's not just about saving money. It's about also improving service. So if we can save money, on the subsidy end, some of that could be used, actually to improve service. But, I think that, for example, now with Rapid Transit providing our shared ride service, we have some new opportunities in terms of greater efficiency. And what I was suggesting here, and this is a discussion I think we should have at the Critical Issues Committee, but also, could be a discussion at the CAT board. The CAT shared ride buses, that come over here into Cumberland County, okay, to go to the doctors or whatever it is. There's no reason why we shouldn't have an agreement with them, or, and vice versa, so that we can, better coordinate. The other question that's going to come up in this discussion is the work hours. When is the service provided? Right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I coincidentally or not, I just received a call yesterday from an individual, and I'm not going to mention the individual's name, who has a daughter who's disabled and lives again within this 3/4 of a mile of fixed route, and she's got CAT service in a wheelchair, and was left, according to the father, was left to sit outside at the Navy Supply Depot where she works for over an hour. Okay, that's not right.
Yeah.
We need to address those things. So I appreciate you coming in and sharing these concerns. We have both of our representatives of the CAT board here today. so that hopefully they can relay your concerns back to, you know, and I think we have to work on some of these issues. It's not, you know, it's not easy. You know, you may need to be where you are at 7 o'clock, and you might need to be where you need to be at 10 o'clock, and, you know, it takes a great deal of coordination to.
Jim, if I can maybe
Sure.
just, I've been listening a lot, and I'd just like to share a couple things.
Sure.
Bob Philbin, who, as you know, is CAT's customer service manager, has been out for an extended period of time, you know, on medical leave after a
Yeah.
serious situation. Bob's back in now. I'm sorry, I did not know you came. I haven't seen the minutes because they hadn't been distributed yet at the September meeting. I know you were in there in May, and you expressed, and I heard people say we're going to get to work on it. Bob left on medical disability. He's back. I think he's back now. I'm pretty sure he
Yeah,
is.
he's back.
Started last Thursday.
Okay, he's back in. So I think maybe regionalization's great, but in the near term, that isn't going to solve these people's
No,
problems in the
you're
next few
absolutely
months. So
right.
I think what we need to do is get with Bob, take it to the board, and then, you know, hold them accountable. And I would be happy, I did give you all my card, and I'd be happy, you know, to follow up.
Bob, yeah, different perspective on that. Bob's a great guy, like working with him. He's good at marketing communications, which is actually his job. It's not customer service. It's Tom Young, the assistant
Well,
general
Tom,
manager.
Bob.
Tom's been there. He's not been out. He's not been sick. The buck stops with him. He sets policy. He's in charge of the system, Echo system, its implementation, which, by the way, was 2-3 years ago. The bugs should have been worked out to the extent they're going to be worked out years ago. And the corrections have been repeatedly and repetitively brought to the CAT operating people. And what I'm hearing is nothing's been done.
You know, and actually, Tom Young came to, when the Wilson Motion Group had just started, and we had him come to talk about a 1.5 years ago, filled the room with people, lists of issue after issue after issue. He took notes. Never did we get anything back in any kind of response to anybody's issues. We didn't get anything. And we invited him back to our meetings to give us updates. We haven't heard any resolution from that year.
We've been told that he's the one that is supposed to be contacted with our issues.
Tommy Young.
Yeah,
Correct.
we contact Tom Young with
In
the office.
an organization that is customer-focused, customer service is a priority from the bottom up. You cut the head off for whatever reason, you know, it should be able to persist. It should guide people's operations from the bottom up. It's not one individual's job or responsibility. A customer-focused organization, okay, and for those of us who fund those organizations, should have that ethic and that perspective built in from the person who's on the phone to the person who drives the bus, and frankly, their compensation should depend, at least in part, to how well they do in that particular area. And I think one of the more disturbing things is the stories about the lack of responsiveness. Because, I mean, rule number one of effective customer service management is listen, respond, commit, follow through.
We, you know, just to be clear, we did get an email, we do want to schedule with Mr. Philbin. We'll do whatever we can to advance the issue to make systems change. But like you said, we don't really want the seat at the table, we want the voice, we want the opportunity to have a vote. And we want to make sure that when we have an advisory, it's not a token advisory. And so that's what we're really, really fighting for, is to be able to be the people that can help make decisions. You know, we have all kinds of ideas to make it, like you said, at the ground level. The riders, you can't give us more ground level than really what's wrong, and what would be a better way of going about it.
I would assume then too, that if this is this is not just, a Cumberland County problem. I would imagine that have you talked to the representatives of the city of Harrisburg and
Yes, we
Dauphin County?
We've talked with Dauphin County, we've talked with Cherry County, all. The Center for Independent Living serves 5 counties, we've almost talked with every agency that would bring clients into the Silver building.
We haven't talked to the commissioners yet.
Yeah.
For Dauphin County.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
the
but-
CAT board, you know, essentially, CAT is 3 counties, or I'm sorry, it's 3 entities. It's the city of Harrisburg, Dauphin County, and Cumberland County. That's
Okay.
CAT.
And we'll make our way from.
So, my only suggestion is that this is not just a Cumberland County problem.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
And that, you know, I think I'd be interested in, you know, what our colleagues in the city council, and mayor, and Dauphin County commissioners, you know, what they might be interested in, and what complaints they're hearing as well, because it's something I think that we need to address together. In terms of Rick's suggestion, in terms of, you know, trying to meet the immediate needs, unless you, Mike, have another, or Larry, have another suggestion on how we should proceed, I think that what's available to us right now is through the CAT board. You know, we don't have any other mechanism unless you're prepared to make some other kind of recommendation today, you know, as to how we proceed. We think your immediate needs should be
It would
addressed.
be helpful, I think. Do you have something in writing, like a written set of suggestions that we can take up, or have you already done that?
I just have them, and we have them through our minutes and that kind of thing, but it's not any unified recommendation.
I think
on that.
what-
Pam, if I can, I'm sorry, Pam, if I can, the minutes were taken as of the meeting that was held after the May CAT board meeting.
Mhm.
You were never provided a copy, but ostensibly CAT has them. So-
Okay.
Okay.
That
So that would be a source of the details.
But I think
Yeah.
what I'm hearing is,
No,
sort of,
what
what are the
I'm
asks?
talking about is
What-
not the details. I'm
Right.
talking about a written set of recommendations from your perspective,
Mhm.
not just the minutes and
Okay.
things, but
Yeah.
your suggestions about how to make it better.
Mhm.
Put that in writing. I would suggest addressing it to Eric Bugal, who's the chair of the CAT board,
Okay.
you know, and then copy each of the CAT board members, and then we take it up.
Okay.
And also the commissioners of the counties that
Okay.
Rick would be engaged with.
Okay.
Along the same lines,
And don't forget the city. City
and-
council.
Say that again?
and-
Don't forget the city
Yeah,
representative.
right. And earlier in the conversation, if you know of successes, counties, agencies that are doing some things very well,
Okay.
highlight those. They may be suggestions that could work, they may not be able to work. But at least it's an overture that someone else in the Commonwealth, again, might be doing this.
I've been told that there's a representative at Rapid Transit that has Ecoline down pat. Well, I don't recall what his name is right now, but I have his name.
What?
Right?
Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm sorry, please, Pam,
I
after you.
was just gonna ask, like, I loved the recommendation before, but I didn't know if any support from the commissioners for you all about to advance the advisory or our recommendations, getting them to you guys.
We'll definitely stay on that. I think the biggest challenge for the county and the CAT board is the culture problem I'm hearing, the lack of disrespect, the lack of follow-through, the lack of responsiveness, and the repetitive recurring issues that could be, if there was the will and the right customer focus, traced to a cause and resolved. So I think it's a culture issue, is the biggest obstacle.
It was much different, it really was much different back with Lester and some other people running it.
How long ago?
Can I-
How long ago was that? What time
Lester,
frame?
all right. I was in 2005, so last time I worked with him directly was 2005, but it might have been 2006 or 2007. And they had another consultant who was excellent, and he's out of Indiana. And Zaviska, Joe Zaviska, when he was involved, and he knew ADA,
So it's deteriorating.
yeah.
Okay. I want to be respectful of Pastor Minich
sorry.
Fine.
from the Salvation Army. I want to make sure you give some time to talk. I know you have fixed route experiences in placing folks in employment situations, both across a couple different counties, but certainly with employers in Cumberland County and some employees would want to be employees in Cumberland County. If I can give you some time to talk as well.
Pastor Scott May, from resident of Silver Spring Township, so I thank you for this opportunity. to speak. I speak in the role of a pastor. Actually, I oversee a program at the Salvation Army in Harrisburg that helps clients reach self-sufficiency. It's called the HAP program. And we have a feeding program there at the Salvation Army breakfast program that feeds approximately 70 to 100 people. So back in, and I'm the chaplain there for those people. Back in March, we heard that Amazon and Carlisle was hiring at a really good rate. At that point, it was $12, $25 an hour. A lot of my guys are making $8 an hour, 3 days on, 2 days off, in some of the warehouses. This is going to be pretty steady work, 40 hours a week. So we began to investigate the transportation opportunities to get to Carlisle from Harrisburg. And what we found was, at that point, we knew of two. I'm a Princeton graduate, so I went down and asked for some information, got the information compiled, a little sheet, so I might have been missing something according to somebody. But anyway, the two things I found out was that there was a bus in Market C. You had to get on at 5:30 a.m. from the transfer station in Harrisburg, get off from Carlisle at 6:30, and then you have to walk 3 miles for your 7:30 start time. So if you could walk 3 miles or bike 3 miles along West Ridge Road, Garland Drive, Walnut Bottom Road, and Allen Road, then you were in good shape. If you could get up at 5:30, you could get there by 7:30 and walk the road 3 miles. If you could walk a mile or bike a mile, then you could get up at 5:30, take the Market Route C, get off at stop 16 in Carlisle at 6:24, get up 5 blocks to Hanover and Penn Street by 6:45. At 6:45, catch the Carlisle Circular bus and get off at the spot at 7:15 and walk a mile to your 7:30 start. So in that case, if you could walk a mile or bike a mile, you could then take the 5:30 bus, get off at 6:30, catch another bus at 6:45, get off at 7:15, and get to your start time at 7:30. The unfortunate part about that one, the second one, was that it didn't have a 1 mile route going back. You actually had to walk the 3 miles back to the place at the Carlisle Commons to get back to your place.
Does anybody think this makes any sense?
Right, so,
I mean, I'm not being flippant.
No, that's right. Sorry.
I mean, I'm hearing the 3 miles, and, I'm thinking, okay, 5:30 in the morning, this reminds me of Officer Candidate School. Truly, this is unacceptable.
So,
And then now, it's a, sort of a nice mild day,
Right.
but how about snow?
Right, exactly.
How about rain? How about all those other elements?
And then, going along a busy highway that you're on there in Allen Road, at least off the road, or next to highway, Sunbury. Exactly. So what there was a representative from Senator Teplin's office there during one of our job fairs there in March, and I made the comment to him that I really felt like we could fill a bus in Harrisburg with clients that would be willing to work in Carlisle if we could get transportation for free, not even free, just to get them there, in a reasonable time, So what happened through that process was that the staffing agency that is hiring for Amazon went ahead and kind of rolled with the idea, and basically is now providing for free transportation from the Harrisburg transfer station to Carlisle for a third shift opportunity. And not only have they filled one bus, but they've actually filled 2 buses with people from Harrisburg willing to get on a bus at 5:30 and get home at 5:30 in the morning, but to work third shift. But now they're making $14.25 an hour, which for a lot of the guys that are coming through my program, some of them in the shelters, many of them living, day to day at the suitcase, things like this. This is a tremendous transformational opportunity for them, because on a good week when they're working 60 hours during the Thanksgiving and Christmas and this October season, they'll be making $900 gross checks. They'll be able to pay an apartment, they'll be able to get a car, they'll be able to get insurance, and really get their life turned around literally in about 4 months. All that was needed, really, was a bus. And the bus, it serves the people of Harrisburg, of course, and the clients who are trying to turn around their lives. From those people coming out of jail looking for an opportunity, a second chance. Some of them who are just struggling, who've had difficulties.
Well, the personal dignity of being able to contribute back to your community.
Exactly, so they're right. So it's a win for the clients. It's a win for Harrisburg because they're not providing shelter anymore and paying money for them. They're actually paying taxes back to the community that they live in, right? And it's a win for Cumberland County. It's a win for the warehouses that are out here because they have employees that are able to make their work go. And so you have this opportunity for employers to say, yes, we can get the workforce here in Cumberland County to make this thing go. 2 buses, you know, and everybody that steps on that bus, I was there the first night they ran the first bus, and it was exciting, you know, and some of the people that are on those buses, their lives have just been totally turned around along those lines. And so I was at a transportation meeting a week or so ago, and basically what I said was, you know, in around that table were a lot of smart people, you know, people from CAT, board members and things like that. And it just seemed to me that, you know, rerouting the bus 1 mile left, you know, or 2 miles left at a different time really could produce such economic benefit. I mean, you know, 2 buses full, that's a lot of money, you know, 70 times 80, that's $5,600 in a month for 2 buses, just to go 1 mile left as opposed to 2 miles right. And my encouragement to them was to really begin that process, or continue that process to a little bit more efficiency and the use of resources to get the people to where they need to get to. And I don't think it's rocket science, but it'll make the difference between somebody who's living in a shelter and someone who's making a $14 an hour paycheck for 3 or 4 months, and maybe for a long time. Maybe as an employee for Amazon, because they are hiring full-time employees. So those guys that do well are going to stay there. I mean, and that's just worth doing flips over.
The fact is, and that's one of the issues where I think that, you know, Jackie Parker from the city mentioned it at, you know, the first critical issues meeting that we had, is there are folks who absolutely depend on public transit.
Exactly.
All right? To lead productive lives.
Exactly.
People without automobiles, or a lot of our seniors who may no longer be able to drive a car any longer, or folks in the disabled community, or, you know, low-income folks who just don't have the ability to afford a car. This allows them to get to a job and get home, all right, and earn a living and be productive citizens. So
there's a whole.
it is one of the things that I think is common that we share when we move forward with the discussion of regionalization of transit. Okay, we have that in common, whether you live in Perry County, whether you live in the city of Harrisburg. Right. So, I mean, whether it's our shared ride program, which I think is a critical part of this, you know, or fixed route transit, I think it all works together. But so.
This question of point-to-point transit essentially for, you know, employer to employee makes a heck of a lot of sense. There are a lot of people who believe that that's really the future of mass transit anyhow. You got a full bus, you're meeting societal need. You don't have, you know, there's just constant circulation. We hear all the time about the buses circulating empty.
Right.
So, yeah, this is absolutely a win, and it seems to be almost a common sense approach. Now, I'm interested, Mike, you've mentioned too, that in some of there's been some discussions with CAT in regards to how we sustain this in the future, how it's paid for. And I guess I'd be looking for, not today, but at some point, could we get some regular updates on CAT's responsiveness to this? Because it is something of a change in how they've done business. They've done some of this in the past with the Ross stores facilities. But, you know, the fact is, it's been a long time since your workforce lived in housing around the factory in the same town. So, and everybody walked to work, they didn't have to have a car. There were opportunities for a lot of folks who didn't necessarily have high levels of skill, high levels of education. Now you've got a complete mismatch between the demand for labor and the supply of labor. And you know, that creates enormous economic and social dislocations. We have a potential solution that on the surface seems so simple. But we do need to pay for it as well. And I guess the question I have is CAT going to expect additional payment when the idea of connecting commuters from their home to their workplace seems to me to be a basic premise of the whole idea of mass transit?
And I would just say to that point that you know, I see a place where maybe for the first month, you know, here at the Salvation Army at times we have provided bus passes. In fact, we bought a lot of bus passes from CAT, so we are a consumer in that sense, many monthly bus passes. For the first month for these gentlemen, and maybe possibly the stores would be willing to, the warehouses would be willing to do something along those lines, where for the first month, so after the first month, they can pay for their own bus pass. So I don't see this as necessarily subsidizing CAT long term. I see it the other way around. I think providers will subsidize CAT. And there's no reason why they can't pay that, and that's part of the process.
The only point I would make, and I think we're going to have some further discussion on this, is whether there needs to be additional subsidy for, say, CAT to do what, at a lot of logical levels, seems to be the job that's already being paid by the county. As to, if we're within a mile or two, why doesn't the route include that already? The county's paying substantial dollars for this service.
And as a society, we'll just say that, as a society, we are looking for solutions to deal with the problem of an underprivileged, class, you might say, a class that has not been passed over with this technological age. A lot of our guys are 40 and 50 years old. Some of them can't even type. So a job like this is a tremendous opportunity at $13, $14, $15 an hour, $12 an hour even, to really address what's at the core of that segment of society that's underprivileged or not with the resources. We have these jobs that could get them those things. We just can't get them from here to here. And that just didn't, that to me at that point in March didn't seem logical, and it just seemed like we could easily fill a bus, 2 buses. And now, they're talking about more buses, and the staffing agency said is we'll provide as many buses as can get on, people can get on those things. So I think it just shows the need, the opportunity, and I'm just I guess calling for just more coordination and efficiency.
We've fallen into an era of low expectations from our transit agencies.
But the 14 counties, I can tell you out west, are looking at a huge regional transportation in conjunction with corporations, the workforce, and the demand. And there are rural counties, to include Butler, that make up that consortium to say, how do we get this workforce to the employees, to the employer?
Two really quick points. One is, this is kind of an economist's dream, to get away from the humanitarian aspect. You have effective demand for a service. You have people who need the service for funds to come through the government or partially subsidized and what have you. You have people, because at that meeting, people are paying $5 a pop to go one way. Okay, and willingly, without complaining, paying for that. So you have effective demand in our market system. We should be able to meet that demand through some mechanism. The second thing I think is, and I was at that same meeting, there was an aha moment, I think, towards the end of the meeting, where we realized if we had empty circulator buses running, that and paying additional on top of the normal subsidy that we pay, or local share that we pay to CAT, and we're talking about the need to add another service, potentially at another a la carte arrangement, maybe it was time to rethink our overall service and redesign that service so that effective demand from all the people who need it, in addition to our people on the West Shore and every other place, could meet that. And we wouldn't and shouldn't have to pay additional money.
What is happening in the region is that the transit agencies that are getting together and pulling resources, having administrative staff as part of the equation, are expanding service. I think Berks, BARDA, Red Rose have expanded service. I think they added 8 routes, if I understand correctly, a number of months ago. And they regionalized in late 2014. Those that don't are either remaining static or as in CAT's case, have to cut service to the community. And what we're hearing now, we heard a lot of at the Carlisle Circulator meeting from the big employers in Cumberland County, is that there's a lot of pent-up need. And those are for the most part guaranteed, captive riders, if you will. And that would offset the big declines. I'm, from my seat as treasurer of CAT's Ford, are seeing double-digit declines in ridership. which is then further digging the hole we need to get out of and accelerating the need to reduce service. Any final words from anybody? I thank everybody for, sorry, Seth. Yes, please.
A lot of times we're the main resource to get people on the bus. So it would make sense that if we would have a satisfied ridership, we could give those people on the buses consistently, and they would use it very, very consistently. It doesn't make much sense that if they make it a reliable service, we could get those people on those buses.
Well, you guys are loyal riders,
Yeah.
and you're our core constituency. We have to make the service better for you.
Wait, can I ask one last question, and I'm going to direct it your way? We heard the reference earlier regarding the customer satisfaction surveys that were done, and we said about how, it just didn't ring true with you when they were reporting that this high level satisfaction is with customers. That's exactly the kind of situation that should be reflected back. The idea of the customer survey is to raise the warning flags. This system obviously hasn't done that, or hasn't done it to a degree that it's gotten management's attention. So is there, can we determine if there's a system process there? Are they just not listening to that? Or is that system?
Hearing the testimony that I've been hearing, I discount. I would, as a correct board member, be also inclined to chuckle as well. I would say for that to have any validity, it would have to be done by an outside firm.
So in other words, they're just going through the motions in-house.
That's
Or they've
what it
dismissed
is.
a significant group of individuals, marginalized them, and what I'm hearing is, sort of perceive that you arrive late at work, and you have no personal, again, as I said, dignity, that you take responsibility for your job just as anyone else would, without a
But
disability.
if their system is set up correctly, your dissatisfaction should be reflected.
That's right.
That is a system breakdown. That should show up. That should be a red flag to management or the board, frankly, that something's wrong here. It shouldn't take years to find.
And every call too. I mean, even just simply, the call log coming in with, again, the communication that,
Part of the context from my response to you on that matter is the general manager as well, explaining to me the reason for the decline in ridership is poor service. So and that severely puts into doubt the percentages we may be hearing.
thank you for coming.
Thank everybody for attending.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for taking the time to hear us.
Absolutely.
And I love your flag. Your flags are cool.
Oh, okay.